from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign in time to return all US land back to their rights owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast. Techno-communism.
Welcome back to the Ben Zion Show. We're doing another movie review, the third movie review that we've done in the short weeks that this podcast has been back on the air. It's something I have some guilt about. I have some guilt. The reason that I feel this way is because American movies and Western products produced out of commercial pipelines should not really be touted all the time in the way that they are. For the record, we'll talk about M3GAN, but please note that the Earth is dying. This is the fault of capitalism and the ecocidal West and its watchdog and protector, the fascist United States. Please note that this situation of a dying species and a dying planet was not happening in quite the same way, arguably not on that trajectory at all, before the existence of not just an imperial United States of the 20th century, but an imperial United States with a particular kind of brainwashing in effect. Global cultural imperialism and a stateside cultural effect. I've referred to this on the show as Project Mockingbird, which, if you know anything about three-letter agency jargon, this refers to a specific proposed brainwashing program using the mass media. However, this was not merely proposed, it was really effectively enacted. You can see it, the CIA has an office that decides what movies are acceptable to make. All the fun summer movies with a big budget more or less go across that desk. And a lot of operations, like the Marvel comic universe, were built out in conjunction with that Project Mockingbird oversight. An awful lot of, if you want to be rich and famous, that's really how you have to do it. That's how people like Elon Musk became rich and famous in another sector, taking sweetheart government contracts, working closely with three-letter agency operatives. One of the guys he came up with is more or less now completely three-letter agency integrated. Peter Thiel and Palantir are basically the CIA. You say, oh, but Peter Thiel it doesn't say on his resume that he works for the CIA, Ben, so maybe you're lying. No. You are being willfully obtuse and obscuring the effects of these kind of agencies and operations because you don't want to see those things. Unfortunately, that's most Americans. But back to M3GAN. She's an exciting little robot. So M3GAN is a film that was released in 2022, has a broad release now in 2023. And it was made by two filmmakers whose films you probably seen before in this decadent West. James Wan and Jason Blum. Let's talk about a guy named Blum on the last show. This studio, Blumhouse and James Wan, they both have pretty specific kinds of aesthetics. So when I saw artwork, and just run through my feed a few months ago for M3GAN, I didn't even make the connection that this was a film about artificial intelligence and robotics. I just thought it was another James Wan picture about a scary doll. Because the artwork is quite similar to two or three other films. These two filmmakers have made a lot of films more in the realm of supernatural horror. Not so much about, not something that we would review on this show. Although we did review a supernatural horror film. You could watch that episode. That was a movie called Good Madam. But that was not made by imperialist pigs. It was made by nice folks outside of the U.S. and has important ideas within. Does M3GAN have important ideas within? Probably not. But it's nevertheless tech-related, so we will discuss it with the caveats that I mentioned. You probably shouldn't be watching this crap. And also, hey, maybe illegally download it. If you're going to interact with cultural hegemony and imperial effects, you can at least not put money in their pockets. You should support artists, Marxist artists, but you should not support people like Jason Blum, in my opinion. You might not. You might consider yourself a person supporting a humane and sustainable economic system, and not take this hardline view that piracy is the more acceptable thing. And I will respect that, but please consider that it's the same person who's still driving around in an automobile, knowing that automobiles are killing the planet, who's still eating animal products, knowing that animal products are the number 2 cause of killing the planet after petroleum products, and you tell yourself, well, I'm one person, or you tell yourself these are matters beyond my control. Those are lies, because we need to, if humankind is going to survive, we need to abolish those 2 sectors, petroleum products and animal products. Not 30 years from now, in a way that doesn't hurt the ruling elites, and discuss it and maybe never do it at all. We need to be clamoring for that every day in every way. And you're not doing that, because I know you're not doing that, because you're driving around in a car listening to this right now. I haven't had a car or any a gas-powered machine for about a decade. When I started to understand some of these things, I do have a kind of motor vehicle, but a very simple kind of motor vehicle, an electric tricycle that I built myself at the local co-op with the assistance of another volunteer there. That's the only vehicle I have, is something that weighs about 100 pounds and goes about 25 miles an hour. And I would even say that I prefer mass transit to riding that, but it's a margin call. Ride a bicycle, take mass transit, ride a sustainable vehicle. Don't go and buy Tesla. Don't be the person who, on a TV show, who says, well, I have 3 Teslas. That's how much I'm doing for the environment. Every one of those Teslas is in significant environmental impact, as great as any other, the production of any other vehicle. The only thing you're doing is propping up an unsustainable business model. And but back to M3GAN. M3GAN is a big blockbuster. You can see headlines that say things like, M3GAN is revitalizing the movie industry. And it's kind of fun that a movie that has arguably some techno-communism related themes, not so much Marxism, but maybe we can tie it into to the ideas of tech accelerationism here. It's a little bit of a stretch, I'm not going to lie, but we're going to do it. I don't want to give some spoilers. Maybe I'll say what I said on the Good Madam show. You should definitely watch Good Madam. If you're watching this and you haven't watched M3GAN yet, maybe you will, maybe you won't, maybe you don't care about spoilers. But pause this and go and watch M3GAN first, and then come back and listen to this chit chat. So M3GAN is a story that's set in the Pacific Northwest. It takes entirely place in Seattle, Washington area. And there's a pretty good jump scare at the beginning. And I won't try to give away too many of the plot points, but there's a good scare in the first moments of the film that lets you know that this is a James Wan type picture. Even though the first act, you're wondering, is this a horror film? And that's often the case. And I got into watching James Wan pictures with my ex-girlfriend, who I was with for 5.5 years. I didn't like horror movies that much before I met her. She influenced my thinking, probably for the worst, ever so mildly. Although, to be fair, she's not a bad person. Um, but um, high praise coming from me, who has contentious relationships with some of his ex. But she. This is why I don't date anymore. Not just the fact that I'm kind of an idiot in relationships. I'm not quite smart enough to do this, but also, yeah. Well, my I tend to take on the characteristics of the people that I'm spending a lot of time with. I think that's true of all of you. And so reflecting these characteristics, how much does that really need to happen? How much do I really need to be subtly pushed towards liking James Wan pictures? Arguably pure Western decadence. Maybe not that much. So it's not something that I do anymore. But that's not the only reason. Not just because I have trouble doing it, or because of this kind of weird reason that doesn't really make that big of a difference. Another reason is quite simply that I am an advocate for um, a certain kind of worldview related to sustainability, and also related to support for the LGBTA community. So I believe in asexuality in service to those things. So I can't very well advocate for um, this position of choosing not to have children and not to be consumed by sexual things um, in a world that's dying if I don't do that myself. Um, so this is a big part of the reason. You say, why make major life decisions based on ideology? Well, meh. Um, you should all be doing that more. I shouldn't be doing it less. Um, but there you go. M3GAN is a science fiction horror. A lot of the movies that I've enjoyed over the years fall into uh, uh, science fiction horror, surrealistic science fiction, surrealistic horror. Uh, those pictures are sometimes quite good. And this movie is about 100 minutes long, it's almost exactly 100 minutes long, which is a good length for a film. Um, if you're gonna make a movie, which unless you're making a documentary, don't make a movie. But if you ever do make a movie, um, uh, don't make a long movie. You're just begging the people watching to be like, this jerk is wasting my time. 100 movies is a pretty good length for a thriller, and most movies really should be thought of kind of as thrillers. Um, um, you know, some people, some of the big summer movies of um, of recent months, um, Avatar and the Black Panther sequel. These are two very big movies right now, and they're both a little on the long side, is my understanding. I haven't watched either of them in their entirety yet. Um, Not going to be plugging Marvel movies on here, and Avatar just doesn't quite meet the previously described benchmarks of being having hardline socialist themes to really discuss, or tech accelerationist themes to really discuss. But M3GAN does, so that's why we are talking about M3GAN. So M3GAN is not completely a CGI creation. You might, knowing something about visual effects, assume that maybe this is a voice fake, and maybe this is complete CGI. But that's not true. There's a voice actor and a young actress named Amy Donald who plays Megan. And that's so Amy Donald is doing a physical performance, and then a voice actress is doing the voiceover, and then a lot of the film is animated effectively. You're hard pressed to find any major release or summer movies, action movies, that aren't pushing up to being basically animated films that look like live action films. You can almost say that the live action film is dying because visual effects have become so central to film making, commercial Western filmmaking. Every Marvel movie is basically just an animated movie presented to some as not an animated movie. And yeah, there's actors doing some recordings of actions, and but it's kind of they're doing an awful lot of just voice work and green screen work, and that's so almost every one of these films is hybrid animation, and I kind of like the technical stuff around this. You know, you can see in the intro there's very bad green screen work even in this silly little podcast. I kind of enjoy this sort of thing, and I've kind of enjoyed it more in the past. Although people have pointed out that that some of the work I've done in these areas, not necessarily something to brag about, is podcasting and making bad student films rise to the level of filmmaking. I don't care. I've enjoyed these things in the past, and I've come to realize that maybe they're not as important as I used to think they are. The making art, the enjoying of culture. These are things that if you're really putting too much time into in your life, you should think of them as an opportunity cost. You are losing something maybe more important. Again, the earth is dying. And every time that you're telling yourself that it's not, or doing things that, if you're spending many hundreds of hours doing them in the course of a year, that's time that you're not spending doing the things that you should be doing, which is standing up for yourself, for God's sake. If you're going to die and the species is going to die, your offspring or family members are not going to live to a ripe old age. The 21st century is in danger, and so the bread and circuses, the things that the fascists want you to focus on, all that Project Mockingbird stuff, which is very real, is not the best use of your time. It's a very poor use of your time. I was going to do this show just to talk about themes in this film, and the idea of runaway artificial intelligence. But this is a pretty localized story about a runaway artificial intelligence. It's one kid going nuts, and you know, it's a thriller. So it's not, say, we mentioned James Cameron already, so you know, it's not the world of the Terminator where runaway artificial intelligence threatens to destroy humanity, which, to be honest, is a real scenario. But not the artificial intelligence running away, but the advanced algorithms and emerging advanced technology being used by fascists in an irresponsible way, in such a way that it destroys the earth. That's the scenario that you live in. And every moment, every time you see a media product that puts the onus on a non-human actor says that the AI is going to become self-aware and be the danger to you. It's a form of deflection from the fact that very real fascists control these properties and are using them in nefarious and irresponsible ways. Not even just merely evil. Stupid. Stupid. These are stupid people. I mean, you don't get into a situation where you're killing the earth and forcing everyone to go along with the death of the earth. You don't get into that situation by being particularly intelligent. This is something that you should know of socialists relative to those of the capitalist class. The capitalist class may be devious and may win in the sense that the bad guys who have no scruples will sometimes win out over the good guys. But that doesn't mean that they're really smart. They are not smart. Yeah, I think of the time that John F. Kennedy, when he was still living, agreed to debate Nikita Khrushchev, and you can read the transcript of this. Just dances. Khrushchev just dances circles around him. There's not ever going to be a situation where the fascists are actually that smart. And thus, a 20th century and 21st century ruled by fascists is one in peril, wherein one where a world revolution had been allowed to occur would have been one where you would now be safe. So you should think long and hard about that and accept that as true. And think long and hard about what you will do moving forward and what you will say to others moving forward, because that needs to happen. And so I'll take a moment and talk about my presidential campaign. I'm running for president of the United States of America. Who's Ben Zion? That doesn't matter, because Ben Zion will never actually be president for more than a few days. Because when I am president of the United States, I will sign an executive order to disband the federal government and place all of these assets, properties, and institutions under the administration of tribal councils, Native American leaders around the country, managing 13 different districts. You can read about this in the Facebook group where some of this is described, called the Real Communist Party of the United States of America. And so you don't have to be, maybe you don't have to necessarily have respectability, be an advocate of respectability politics to run a campaign like this. This is a pirate campaign, and rightly so. Think of the idea that those of the liberal class and the capitalist class more broadly all support this. Liberals and conservatives all support this. If you want to change the world, you have to do it the right way. That's what they say. You have to do it the right way. You can't be out in the street advocating for the overthrow of the government. You have to do it in this reformist and electoralist way. Why? Why is reform and electoral politics emphasized in this? Because those segments have been captured by fascists, and they know that your efforts will prove fruitless. So fascist sympathizers want you to do a thing that will have no effect. You will still die. If your focus is exclusively on reform and electoral matters, this planet is doomed. And that's not to say that you might not undertake some electoral initiative. Arguably, I'm advocating for an electoral project at this very moment, namely my presidential campaign. It's an electoral project to disband larger electoral system, but nevertheless. Back to me. The voice actress is a young woman. I'm reminded of another horror film that called Orphan, which is more controversial for having a young actress playing a role that was a little salacious. I think Christian groups were trying to ban this. This is a film from a decade ago, but a sequel came out last year, which I admit I did watch. I watched both of those films. The sequel is kind of better than the original. Neither of them is a masterpiece, and honestly, they're both kind of garbage that I shouldn't be watching. But I had already seen Orphan, and I thought I would watch Orphan 2. It was regarded as a film that had a technical a virtuosity to it because the actress it's been a decade and a half. The actress was playing about the same age, so they did forced perspective, like they did to make Gandalf look really big and Frodo look really small in the Lord of the Rings. They did forced perspective stuff and other practical tricks. It was mostly practical effects that did this. So it's considered a unique sequel because this 30-year-old woman was playing a 13-year-old, the same character. But that first film was controversial because she was a 13-year-old playing a 13-year-old seducing and killing people. And there was a sequence, and maybe that in itself wouldn't be so controversial, but there's sequences in that film that would be regarded as borderline pornographic. So, and maybe in a world where there's not Western decadence, maybe films like this are no longer made. Who knows? But I saw that when it came out. I was not a very good Marxist at the time, and the aforementioned girlfriend of many years was like, "You gotta watch this movie. It's crazy." I was like, "Okay." That's kind of how my life is sometimes go on. The voice actress was an adult, a young adult, 18-year-old, who played Megan, and I thought that this performance was pretty fun. Like there was kind of weird sequences, dance sequence and singing and piano playing. There's enough musical elements in this story that you can say it kind of almost a musical, not quite, but I enjoyed that little element there. So I kind of enjoyed these performances. But the other actors, the other lead is Allison Williams, who was in most famously had a breakaway role in Jordan Peele film. We talked about Jordan Peele before. The other performers are all pretty solid and quite funny. The CEO guy who was I thought a pretty amusing performance.